Hello. Can't hear you.
Hello. Yeah,
Hello,
I just
there we
realized
go. Hello, how
How
you
you
doing?
doing?
I'm
I'm
good.
good. How are you? I'm stuck deep in Kubernetes land for once. So uh, probably got lots of questions for Graham. Um, but I'll let you guys have your demo first.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting demo. I'm hoping we'll get a view of Webfleet on Canary. We will. But yeah, Graham's
Awesome.
also having a think about kind of future stuff. So
Yeah.
it should be interesting. One thing, Andrew, I was going to say whilst it's just us here, actually, is do you have time to go through Alejandro's MRs that he sent over to you for registry?
Oh, I haven't. I didn't realize. I will look at them. Thanks. I will.
Like I say, if you don't, then we should find
yeah.
someone else. Like I know you're super busy, so I just don't want.
Yeah.
I think I think it was kind of a sent to you, and we sort of sit back
Yeah.
type of situation.
Okay. Yeah. I will. I mean, yeah. I will look on those.
If not,
Hey,
say
Graham.
like feel free to nominate someone else who can take a look. Right? It doesn't absolutely have to.
Yeah. Okay. I might do that. Yeah. Just because it's. Yeah.
I know you're busy. Awesome. Hey, Graham.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks. How you doing?
Not too bad.
Good.
Graham, before are we waiting for other people? I'm gonna get my question in now.
So.
I think no. Let's start. We're 2 minutes by, so they can.
Okay, let's start. Let's
Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will share my screen. Hopefully this works. Oh man. Cool. So everyone can see dashboards.
Yep.
I'll quickly change this to okay. So last 6 hours. So let's look at Canary in production. See how Canary's doing. Is that loaded already? I should move this window. Yep, so that's loaded. So we can see overall, I mean, looking at the last 6 hours, Canary's been running for about 18 hours now, I'd say, or maybe a bit less. We can see that there's no huge abnormalities. I won't blow this out too much just because the longer all the dashboards take so long to load. I've updated the ticket to point all this out as well, but we have not seen kind of any real change in terms of, say, 5xx responses from HA proxy. Let's have a quick look at web itself. Web overview. Oh, don't know why that's saying that. This is 6 hours, but if we try and tweak this out, I'll try 2 days, but hopefully this doesn't take too long to load. Can we get rid of these? Stage Canary. So it was about, it's about 13, it's about there that the changeover actually happened. I believe, double checking the date. No, it was about there.
Okay, so that sort of sustained period of drop down, that sort of flatish area, there's 2 spikes and then the drop down was after the
I believe so. I'm just going to double check once again. It was okay. 4:18 UTC is on GMT plus 10. That's 2 p.m. my time yesterday. Yeah, I believe that's about correct. And so immediately those would look scary. However, if I blew this out to 7 days, so this means it happened around. I think around here.
Weekend looks good, Graham.
Yeah. It's not unreasonable for us to get dips that low, and we've seen dips that low before. I definitely am interested in giving a few more days. Let me just kind of say it by that, but I'm not seeing this as a huge difference, if that makes sense. Like, I think there might be slight difference. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty confident it's similar, but we'll need to run it for a few more days and probably look probably look overall. With all that time in the weekend, that's probably not making things a bit clearer either. During APAC hours, it definitely looks fine as well. The other interesting one I had a look at was saturation. Is this going to work for me? So you can see here, there's kind of an interesting story with saturation for the memory component, especially. We had a false start where we set the memory limit on the containers too small, 6 gig instead of 8 gig. Turns out, I think we were modeling it off API originally. And it turns out, I think it's slightly different than to API, as in the memory usage, I think, is slightly different. So we were actually hitting out of memory errors here. And so pods were out of memory and getting killed quite a lot. Then we drained Canary when we had to drain Canary and roll this back for another reason. Then when we've added it back in, we actually changed the memory profile. So most of the time, I should change this maybe down to 2 days. Most of the time now, so this is where it kind of came in. You can see that the memory utilization is a lot better than it was before over here, where it was really up high. But we still do get occasionally this massive memory spike and then an out of memory error, like maybe one a day. So I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, I think that might be an application issue, but it's interesting nonetheless.
I'm certain it's almost certainly the application, right? The question, the problem is tracking it down because we're probably not logging it, right? Because it's crashing. So you've actually got to look outside and try to find that trend, which is pretty difficult. But
yeah. And the thing is too, you know, we cycle pods during, like now with me doing deploys, definitely like we're cycling pods pretty consistently throughout a 24-hour period as well, which I mean, that's just, it's not a big factor, but that also means that, you know, we rarely get pods that live for a long amount of time. So I don't know, what am I trying to say? That also can make things difficult if you want to try and profile a pod, or, you know, profile a pod over a long period of time. That becomes a little trickier. But I don't think there's any, sorry.
So, I mean, if it's, what time range is, this is 2 days. So we're talking about 5 or 6 ohms there, right?
Yeah, let's, well, so, actually, believe it or not, this was, so I can actually look how many of these were actual ohms. Only say out of these 3, I think only one of them were actually ohms. But that being said, I still think that that's still quite not great, right? Like we probably don't want that even if it, but yeah. Let's, I
was wondering if we could like look at the data and sort of statistically figure out like if something was getting more 500s, but if we're looking for 5 events out of millions of, or out of tens of thousands of 500s, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Like the usage, actually, let's zoom in on one of these. How quickly is the usage go up? So that's like 1729, 1730, 1732. So that's like what, 1 minute, 2 minutes, more or less, or 2 minutes.
Yeah, if you want that resolution, you really ought to go into Prometheus, because I think we got a minimal thing of 1 minute. But yeah,
sure. Okay. I wonder if I could. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Press X. That's the trick. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, what have I done?
Doesn't really matter. I mean, it's if you want to look into
it. Yeah. No, I might have a look at that. It's good to know. I might look at that. Because it's definitely, it's definitely interesting. I'm not sure. I personally am of the opinion it's probably not enough to hold us from going to production, unless anyone has any other thoughts. But it's certainly interesting.
Graham, the other thing that I would look at if I was you is if you go look in the Rails logs, go and find that pod and the rough time period, and then basically order requests by, there's a memory.
Oh, do we actually stack?
We do. So that might be a really good clue. They're membytes. And some of them are shocking. Like it doesn't surprise me at all that if we're getting stricter on memory, the malloc one of those ones will give you mem total bytes maybe, and then sort of narrow it down to where you're seeing the ohms, and then actually sorry, I just said earlier we're probably not going to log it, but you might get some idea of by looking there of kind of near misses. So we'll obviously log the near misses, but that might be something to look at.
Yeah, no, that's really good help, actually. We do see spikes in disk space usage as well, but I'm wondering if that's related to the open issue we have where we leak files that don't, like a large file uploads or something. I think we occasionally leak them. But once again, it's not enough to cause anything to run out of disk space.
And also with the rate at which we're recycling pods, we're probably doing it faster than the leak, right?
Yeah, I agree. If we look at the AppDex GPod, whoops. Cool. So once again, still this is over a 24-hour. If I change it to 2 days, definitely was a change around here. But I mean, I'm hoping that that's just within the kind of normal parameters for a week. I guess we'll see over the next few days. The other metrics I looked at seemed once again relatively okay. Puma, let's have a quick look at Puma and Workhorse. Some of these metrics now obviously are not broken, but their usefulness is diminished. Things like per fully qualified domain name, because obviously now everything just becomes under one value. Like you lose all of that granularity, which makes sense because we only have one backend. And in fact, these will change over to a different set I think we have specifically for Kubernetes services. But the reason I haven't yet is because if someone has a problem in production which is running in VMs, they need to be able to use these now. So once we cut over to production, then I'll actually go back to these dashboards and maybe review and see if there's others we could use.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that if in the dashboards it says provisioning and then it's got Kubernetes true and VMs true or something along those lines.
Okay.
And when the thing's finished, when you say VMs false, there's a whole bunch of panels that will disappear automatically.
Okay, cool.
Not that per FQDN one in particular, that won't, because that's one of the significant label things, so that you'll find elsewhere. But definitely there's a whole bunch of node level stats. And also I don't see the Kubernetes panel. So if you turn that on, you'll get some other panels. Yeah, there's some more things that if you set it to true, you'll get some nice. So at the moment, So I beg your pardon. We do have it. Yeah. Okay. And it's effectively those node metrics will disappear. The row above.
Gotcha. Oh, I see. Yes. Right. Makes sense.
Agree. Yesterday I discovered the HA proxy dashboard, which is very helpful to see at the latencies.
Absolutely.
Because that's the best way we can easily at least track latency changes from moving to Kubernetes here.
These take a while to do.
Yeah, but if you specifically select the right backends and so on, I will place the link in chat. Chat. Then it's much faster and more selective.
Why does Zoom chat disappear when I share my screen? Sorry, hold on.
I can also put it in Slack maybe.
Yeah, if you could just drop it in delivery or somewhere.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind it's best to use the log data for those latencies, but yeah.
Sure.
But this is the faster way, let's say, for lazy people. So
yeah, for sure. And it if it's lower, it's probably lower. So yeah, it's good.
I will actually do a bit more analysis on the logs. I did a quick analysis on just like 500 errors, but I might dig through like that. You've definitely inspired me with that memory field. I might try and look through all the fields we have and see if I can find any differences to some of those other things. So
Sorry, I was just going to say, and then what you can do is you can look at the workhorse logs, find like 500s from similar place, because Workhorse is running in the same pod. I forgot now, or is it running
It's
in
in the
its
same
own pod?
pod, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Same
It's in
pod,
it's in
it's
same
different container.
same pod. So you can look up for 500s on Workhorse, because you will get the log there, and then you'll know what the candidates are from the bad memory users, and then you can kind of correlate.
So if we look at the last 2 days, we seem to have a weird multi-hour gap here, or 1 hour gap here of metrics, which is a little bit interesting. But yeah, so besides that, the change came in around 19, like somewhere around here. 20, no, even further back. Oh, sorry, it should be somewhere around here, shouldn't it? Around there. So this is probably not enough resolution, but if I'll try pulling this back to 7 days. Is that going to refresh for me? Did that refresh? Oh yeah, 17. No, it didn't yet. Hello, Grafana.
I think yesterday when I looked at the 7 days resolution, it looked like that we have a little bit higher latency, especially on the P95.
Sure.
But overall and average, it doesn't seem to be a big difference. So it's not really worrisome, just like expected, I guess, because we removed Nginx.
Though I would have thought latency would improve. Is that what you're saying? Like,
no, because the other way, because we are not using WebSockets anymore, right? This was the expected latency slowdown, maybe. And also maybe we just have differences in how pods are reacting to load.
Sure. So yeah, I guess that is a good point. I guess we used Workhorse and Puma used to talk via a Unix socket that was, and Nginx, they would all talk via a Unix socket, I'm pretty sure, to each other on the same node, which was obviously quite quick. But now they could potentially be bouncing all the way over the network. We don't have Nginx, fortunately, but at least, oh no, Puma and Rails will be talking over the loopback interface, which could conceivably be slightly slower.
But those latencies you're not going to spot in a Prometheus,
sure,
because you're talking about like many seconds. You know, we're talking 5 milliseconds max, right? So with the resolution you've got here, you're not going to spot that.
Yeah, sure, fair point.
I think you could maybe check the readiness checks here and I think in front end. Check HTTP or check HTTPS. I'm wondering if that one maybe would be the very fast request where we would see maybe a difference.
Sorry, so you check the
in the top variables, there's the front end one, and instead of all, you could select, I think, check HTTP or check HTTPS. I'm not sure, but maybe that would give us the very fast request.
Oh, are these the front ends for doing the health checks? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what we would check there, but at least they look like they should be the fastest responding, right? So if you see latency differences, then we should see them more there, right? But I'm not sure if that is really true.
Let's see if these load. I guess really the question is, as well, is you know, it's definitely possible we've lost a tiny bit of or we've introduced a little bit more latency. Like, what is the threshold we have to kind of consider it a problem, I guess, is the next question. Like, obviously I don't like to see it would be great if it was the same, but it might be slightly higher.
I think if we're still within SLOs, that's fine, right? We can tune this stuff later, right? I think as long as we're planning a gradual rollout through production, I think that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Graham, the one thing that I do think is important is that you also compare queuing time. So that's something else you can get in the logs, because there's no reason at all that queuing time should be bigger. If we've got that, then we've got our Kubernetes config wrong. So I would look at queuing time, but I'd also look at execution time. So separate those two components out, because the reasons for both of them are different.
Okay.
And Matt Smiley pointed out the other day that on some of the concurrency settings on Sidekick were very high, and that's going to lead to things slowing down as well. I don't know if that's the same with this Puma work, but it was like 15 or something like that, which is too high, because it's all effectively contending on a single core. So break that. Like, what maybe one thing to do is take a look at those like histograms of the queuing times for Canary versus main stage, and the execution times from the logs.
Yep.
And those are in the logs, and that would give you a really good idea of like where the latency is coming from.
Yeah.
And if it's queuing time, we should work on it. We should, there's no reason why we shouldn't fix that.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, no, good to know. That's definitely.
I think for these things, Graham, like if you just like do a side by side, like, I think let's try and get some traffic shifted to production next week after the release. But as long as we've got a kind of like, we know this thing slowed down a bit, or we're seeing a bit more of this or a bit less of that, then
Sure.
We can kind of monitor that through the rollout.
Sure. So what I'm kind of hearing is we should definitely do a bit more investigation, which more for that. I'll do that first thing tomorrow morning. But we're not seeing any obvious signals, at least at the moment, that we won't stop at least trying to go to production next week sometime.
I think that sounds right. Yeah, provided we've got the other things in place. So how are we getting on with the readiness review?
So I think we're okay. Basically, we're at the point now where I'm happy with the state of the infrastructure one. We've had Cameron review it, and I think there was someone else who review it. Stan reviewed the one from development. Security one's now been done as well.
Okay.
So we should be, I'm just going to double check to make sure I say the right thing, but we should be basically, I think, almost done, if not done.
Great.
Yeah, I guess it's really a question of, I mean, we've kind of given the only one we kind of left open, which is, so we've had Pierre and we've had Craig Miskell, we've had Cameron review it. So I honestly, unless there's anything major that comes out of it, which I don't think there has been, there's a couple of suggestions here, I'll double check, but they're probably just more like documentation notes than they are actual issues. But I think that's probably done, or at least I can make sure that's wrapped up tomorrow. I feel like we've got a critical mass around that now. So I think all of the readiness reviews should be done by the end of the week, kind of thing.
Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. And then what else have we got that we need to do? Like when are we thinking we'll be ready to start moving over to production? Like assuming all the investigation things go smoothly.
Yep. So assuming that we don't find there's a reason that we shouldn't go to production, tomorrow by the close of business, I will probably have the change request for production done. And then the next question will really be how slow or fast we want to go to production. So I've got about 90% of the change requests done. It's just a matter of, I need to tweak some numbers in terms of how quickly, like, do we want to do 10% every hour? Do we want to do 10% every day? Do we, you know what I mean? Like, it's really a case of just how fast do we want to go? And then I just need to document that, work out the timings, and kind of, prepare to do it, I guess, or, schedule a time.
Cool. Yeah, we'll work with Henry and Scarback, I guess, to work out like those times, like probably something in between those. It's probably where we want to hit. To be helpful.
I mean, API, I think we kind of, I think it was around 24 hours. Like by the time of the 24-hour period passed, we'd gone from 0 to 100. I think so. Maybe we try and work off that. Obviously, we need to be aware of, if we do that, then it means deploys and stuff are going on during that time. So I do need to do a slight tweak to the change request to make sure we're not blocking deploys. And I might even split. I had a chunk of the change request. I'm going to might split up into a different change request that I can action tomorrow. And that's just adding the backends into HA proxy with no wait. So it's like it's getting everything ready. It's spinning up the Kubernetes. It's like all of the prep. And everything's there, but just no wait. And then the actual change request that we do say over 24 hours will be the changing weights, just like slowly waiting, changing the weights. And I think that's I think that would be the best solution. So fingers crossed, I can try and action that tomorrow, depending on just splitting that out. When does the release finish next week? Like when would we conceivably be comfortable kind of rolling into production?
Release will be finished on Sunday.
Okay, so anytime.
So yeah, I think for your Monday, you can begin for this.
Okay, it's good to know.
One other thing to factor in though is we've got Family and Friends Day next Friday. So there'll be a PCL over that. So let's make sure we are finished so that we've got Thursday, I guess, to monitor things and like reduce it back if we need to.
So if all things go well, possibly we could do it next Monday. If not, and I'm going to probably be realistic here, maybe I get some feedback on the CR and I need to do it again, maybe my Tuesday, unless someone else in a different time zone wants to do it. Although once again, I think we're probably going to be doing it over a 24-hour cycle anyway. But and in which case, according to the time zones in the clock, my Tuesday is the 1st. So if I start it, at least then it finishes on the same Tuesday, technically speaking, or a lot of it gets done on everyone's Tuesday.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. When are you planning the security release, Henry?
I think the plan was to get this out next week before the Friday, right?
Okay.
Because Friday is 27th, I think. Normally we would release security releases on 28th. And so we wanted to try to get this in before that to see if we can make this happen. If we can get the change request just to this changing weights, that would be great, because then it would be very comfortable to fiddle around with it, or to roll it back would be super easy and fast. And also it wouldn't block deployments in any way. So that would be cool.
Yeah, that was the feedback I got from John as well. And yeah, it makes total sense. And it wasn't until I sat down and kind of rethought it all out that I was like, okay, yeah, we can do this. We're lucky we did the work on the cookbook. We wouldn't have been able to do this without that. So we can just leverage that now. And as I said, I'll try and just cut and paste I'll try and split it out and actually get that prep work done tomorrow. I should be able to grab whoever's on call in APAC and just, it's a quiet time of day and just kind of get that done. And then it literally will just be changing weights. That's all we need to do. Everything else will be done.
Awesome. Sounds good. Great.
And I guess it is worth noting with our Canary setup as well, technically speaking, I don't know what it is exactly, but I'm trying to think. It's weight 3 versus, let's say it's 1%. It's probably a fraction of 1% of GitLab.com's real traffic is going to Canary and is thus going to Kubernetes as well. So it's not like, it's not just, I mean, we're all familiar with this, obviously, with Canary, but we have, got real user traffic on there, which is good, which makes me more confident already as well.
Great. Yeah, that's good. Excellent. Great stuff. Cool. Well, please, let's keep things moving. Like Skarbek, Henry's around this morning, Skarbek will be around later. So if there's things we could be continuing through today to get this stuff ready for next week, that would be good.
Sure.
Awesome. Do you want to go through your discussion items, Graham?
Yeah, so I'm wary of time and not wasting everyone's time. So I'll try and be quick. So really, I just wanted to point out, based off the discussion I think we had in what it was the DNA, I guess the reliability discussions. I've created an issue in the GitLab chart to talk about getting the upstream GitLab chart to use V2 Beta 2, or basically the new version of the horizontal pod auto scaling API on the objects that we ship with the chart. the short answer of that is it'll give us greater flexibility and control over the scaling. In particular, we can say stuff, we can do things like say scale up very quickly, but scale down slowly to stop, that kind of thrashing and going up and down in pods we have happening all the time. We can be like, you can scale up, over 5, like you can look at metrics over 5 minutes and scale up quickly, but you can't scale down until, you've seen an hour of lower traffic or things like that. So we'll see if distribution can pick that up or we can pick that up for them. So just want people to be aware of that. So one of the topics we want to try and cover after web migration, alongside the pages migration, I guess, is just addressing some of the technical debt and bits and pieces we have. I've kind of chosen to focus at this point on the GitLab com repo. The biggest reason for doing that is with the migration of web, obviously, we have all of reliability now looking at that repo a lot more closely, trying to utilize it a lot more people outside delivery basically contributing to it. We also have, a lot more developers within GitLab who are, trying to roll stuff out and contributing to it as well. It's just grown organically over time to have, some ugliness and some bits and pieces which are we known for a while that, need work. So I don't need to talk too much more about that. So in terms of actual steps, I've started to nail down what I would like to do is like the first real concrete steps to kind of fix some of these things. First thing I talk about there, and I've got issues, as you can see, for all of those. So we've got getting rid of Helm Git, which basically is blocking us. It's a Helm plugin that's loosely maintained. It doesn't do much for us. Well, it does a little bit for us, but what it does is very simple. But the problem is it's blocking us from upgrading Helm and it's blocking us from upgrading the plugin. So I've outlined that issue there and people can have a look and discuss how we basically get rid of it and replace it with something. It sounds like, Andrew, you had success with Git subtrees for Get. Like the thing is we have another Git repo at the chart. We just want it kind of locally in that repo somehow.
Yeah, so I've been using, because we got the same problem with the dedicated, and I'm really liking subtrees because, I mean, there's some downsides and there's a little bit of complexity. It's nothing like Git modules. It's much better, submodules, which was an awful thing. With what I really like is that all your changes are in one merge request, right? So you're not trying to vendor in something and working in 2 repos. You do your changes locally, and then when you're ready, you push a merge request back, and it's just got the changes. The commit sort of list looks a bit weird on the other project because it's got all the commits, even ones that don't have anything to do with that, but you can squash them down or whatever. But it's really I think it's going to be a big productivity boost because you're not trying to work in 2 places, push that change, test it here. You're just doing it locally.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Our use case is actually simpler because I don't think we will want to push changes up to the chart this way. We just need to consume it down. So it's even simpler for us. So.
But you want to track those changes. You want to know, you're talking about you've got deltas off the main charts and you don't want to push them back.
No, we in theory should never have deltas. That's the
right. Okay. Oh, really? I thought that there were, there's a separate branch though, right?
There was for a while there. I think Jav can speak more to this, but we were running off a branch for a while when we had some intermediate work. We try not to as much as possible, but a solution where we could conceivably work off a branch if we needed to, especially in an emergency, is useful, which once again, it sounds like the subtrees will give us if we need to.
Yeah, and what we're doing with this is we've got all these different merge requests that we're pushing back, and then because it's it's all Git, we can look at our total, we can look at what the total difference is and then work on them individually. But the other thing is that we're not trying to wait for every change to get into Git before we can move ahead with our stuff. Otherwise it's just going to be no parallelism at all, which I think will slow things down a lot.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, there's a topic about that and how we can provide some safety for that as well. Because if we start locally vendoring, we need to make sure people don't change the local copy, although it sounds like Git subtree might solve that. So anyway, So once we action that small discrete item, we can then do the upgrade of all the software components we haven't upgraded in months, if not years. The next step from them will be, I want to remove as much of the chef syncing as we can. I think it's just more confusion now because you can't see the values. You just see that they're being pulled from chef, and it's really difficult to debug. And honestly, we just don't have stuff running in chef as much as we used to. And then the final piece in this first wave will be getting us visibility back into our Helm deployments. At the moment, all we get is Helm saying that the upgrade has started, and then 30 minutes later saying it completes with no visibility into what's going on. So there's an issue there to track that, and how we can approach that to try and get some visibility back. I do have obviously larger issues I'd like to do in terms of tackling that repo as well, but I feel like these ones are really good to start with to just get the ball rolling, and then I'll continue to probably try and break off some of the technical debt work into these discrete issues and get them onto the board so we can action them, or others can action them.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that, Graham. So yeah, just to catch the rest of you up. So Graham and I chatted a little bit about this yesterday. So we've got a load of tech debt. We obviously don't want to have to stop a whole project and spend 6 months paying it all down. So we're going to start having like small pieces like this that we can just trickle in alongside our other work. So for now, Graham, I've not got any of these on the board. Just I think some of them we want to see if we can actually break down a bit smaller. And fit in around the web stuff. But like for all of this stuff, please keep opening issues for anyone who's got suggestions for how we can actually like make this stuff, how we can break off small pieces of tech debt and actually have value without needing to just like overhaul the entire thing, basically. Awesome. Do you want to go through number 3, Graham?
Yeah, though I'm a little bit wary just because I'm keeping an eye on time and it is a big topic. I'll try and briefly summarize the important points. So with our current 4-cluster setup, zonal clusters do not have a high availability Kubernetes master. And we have upgrade windows for our Kubernetes clusters basically during APAC work hours. It's been bitten me twice now, and it probably will bite me more, that when the masters go down for upgrade, which can be like half an hour at a time, if I'm running a deploy during that time, they will fail because they can't talk to the master, they can't change the number of pod, basically they just can't deploy. It's not a big issue, and it's semi-annoying because we have zonal clusters for a very important reason, which is cost. Like if we have regional, then pods can talk to any pod in any region, and we get dinged for cross-cluster traffic. So zonal clusters make sense because everything talks to itself in the one zone and we don't get dinged for that traffic. But Google give us 2 options: the regional cluster, where the traffic's free to go across zones as much as it wants, and high available masters, which they say they recommend for production use, or zonal clusters, but this downside of your masters could be unavailable during upgrades and obviously during real outages. I don't think this is a burning issue that needs to be tackled straight away, but it's just something to note. And the other interesting point is, once again, going back to people outside of like reliability and other people looking at our architecture, it is confusing. Like it's different, right? Like people, like the upstream Helm chart, like GitLab Helm chart, they do a great amount of testing in a single Kubernetes cluster. And then they're like, okay, so it should all work for you. And then I'm like, no, I need to go into Terraform and create load balancers and do like internal DNS and like wire this load balancer up, and we've got to do one for each zonal cluster, and it can't just talk to itself by the cluster IP because it's not the same cluster. And then one component lives in this cluster and one component lives here. And so I'm kind of like, I'm okay to keep zonal clusters. It'd be great if Google could just give us HA masters on zonal clusters. And so part of this issue is I would like to squeeze Google a little bit on giving us a solution, but I think I'm wondering if we should just move to zonal clusters and then just make them identical. So a small copy of everything. And then it's just everything talks to itself inside the zonal cluster, but we just duplicate that 3 times and then have HA proxy like arbitrating traffic through the front. The huge downside to that is, say, like the web pod talking to the API pod in one zone can talk via the cluster IP, no external load balancer needed. But if API in one zone goes down, we got no failover to another zone. So there's definitely like pros and cons with all this approach. It's a problem really. It's really a problem that Kubernetes, like the Kubernetes layer, the platform layer, is supposed to solve. And I'm actually really disappointed Google don't have a good answer for it. But yeah, maybe this problem is just too big for now. And in fact, Kubernetes upstream have added alpha features, so in alpha state in Kubernetes 1.22 to solve this problem for everyone. So maybe this problem will just go away naturally in a year. But it is worth pointing out that, and it's just me in APAC time zone, in the same time that the cluster auto upgrades happen, I get dinged on that. And yeah, it would help people's understanding and align our architecture better with what we expect upstream if we could move to just everything runs in the same cluster, even if we duplicate that multiple clusters. Canary and everything, just Canary goes into there, like just everything goes and they're just cut and paste, like identical.
Just with Canary, right? Are there never going to be sort of global things that we're going to want to test and roll out, core DNS or service discovery or something like that, where we want to change, we want to test it in a Canary state, and I mean, I guess we could have everything. Well, we can't really have. We could have most things partitioned, I guess, but there might be some things where it's easier just to have a separate cluster for Canary. Do you follow?
Yeah,
for testing configuration
totally, yeah.
changes.
Yeah, possibly. No, that's certainly another option as well.
But generally, yeah, totally. I agree that having like a single cluster and it, you know, Kubernetes, using a Kubernetes like feature to keep everything in the zones would be much better. You know, the last option that you just mentioned, that's an alpha. I forgot what it's called.
I think they call it Anthos service mesh, and like they've got some stuff that can kind of do it. I think GKE does.
I'm talking about the Kubernetes native stuff though.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. So that's topology keys on services. Jav did raise a good point that obviously if somehow we were to solve this problem and go back to a single cluster, there is like all our eggs in one basket if like the cluster crashes or fails an upgrade. But that being said, we could move to more like a blue-green cluster kind of setup where we still have two clusters. They're both regional and they're there for reliability, not just because we want to shift them in different zones. Yeah, I'm still on the fence about a lot of this. I'm just trying to think of a better way to kind of clean up this so that people can just contribute to the upstream chart. It's all wired through the Kubernetes internal services. They all know how it all works. And then we just kind of duplicate that without like, oh, now I need to figure out what Terraform I have to do to glue this all together.
Yeah, and so I think, yeah, I appreciate you bringing this up, Graham. It sounds big enough that it's the sort of thing that would need to be an OKR and need to have some kind of like, I think it would need to be tied to us having to unlock something versus just it's hard to use just because it's going to be such a huge change.
Yeah, fair point.
Like super risky and stuff. So like, yeah, I mean, like let's keep it in mind, but I don't think we're going to prioritize this. We've got enough kind of scaling related things that will come in. So yeah, so I think it'll be a good one to see kind of like what things look like a little bit further down the road. Awesome.
I had some comments on this. I just wanted to vocalize some of them. So like I think like Graham already covered, like I have my reasons for preferring the multi-cluster just for the blast radius isolation. But on the other hand, the bandwidth issue is really not much of an issue except between HA proxy. So if we do, like this was the main driving, was cost. We had to do multi-cluster because of cost, because of bandwidth. Now without Nginx, the only cross-zone traffic is between HA proxy and the cluster. If we can eliminate the HA proxy layer, which I think we are probably going to do eventually, and we may want to do soon for registry. I mean, not like this quarter, but relatively soon. And my last point is 6 is like, maybe if Terraform confusion is the main driving factor, could we just simplify this with JSONet? Like have maybe some guardrails for like, you know, we could have like one JSONet definition that generates the Terraform for the different clusters. Like you define your node pools in one, like, and that would like make it maybe clearer. But personally, like maybe I'm too close to this. I'm just not feeling the pain like for Terraform, but maybe, I don't know.
So
it's
Karen,
not
what do you
huge.
think?
Jav, like for dedicated, we're generating variables, but we're not generating Terraform. Are you talking about generating the Terraform itself?
I'm generating Terraform.
Why can't you just express the differences as variables?
I mean, that's an option too, but this is like defining node pools. So this is actually defining resources in Terraform. And Terraform reads JSON, right? So you can just write out JSON for Terraform. And that's what I'm doing for the DB provisioning stuff.
Okay, but then you've basically you're not running get. You're not running the get Terraform.
I didn't mention get at all. Like, no, I don't want to use that's not a hammer for this problem. Sorry, I'm not a hammer for this now. No, I mean like in the project itself, we just generate the Kubernetes cluster Terraform config with the JSONet definition that says like, okay, these are the workloads. And then from that, we could generate the cluster config in some way that would make it more straightforward. Maybe it's less straightforward. I don't know, but I don't know like where the pain points are with Kubernetes config because I haven't felt them.
Yeah. So you're right. That is a really good point. I didn't even consider that, but that is a really good point. We can do it one better. All of our GKE clusters come with the cloud connector, so you can actually just write. They've got CRDs and components for a lot of the GCE resources we need, and they could probably just, if we're writing, you know, JSON, like it could just be stuff that, you know, yeah, like you're right. We could probably make tooling that makes this better. I didn't even think of that. And that actually would make it so simple. You could just basically define a services, we need this exposed, and then it would create the DNS record, or we already have, yeah. Okay, to wrap this up, it sounds, it sounds like it's not an immediate problem. You know, we can circle back to it in 6 months or a year and see if it's still a problem then, or if, you know, if things are better or worse. I think maybe it's also, I mean, the big component I've had recently has been CAS, and I put that in the regional cluster. So maybe the different way to look at this problem is we should be moving everything to zonal where we can, I guess. Like maybe the reason Sidekick's in the regional is because it doesn't need to, like, it just talks to Redis, right? And like maybe this was more just a bad call I made on that component, which, so I see that pain point more, but for the other components, it's not as a bigger pain point. But you're right, when we replace HA proxy, there's so many of this, which is just going to make this problem space different that, yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Great. And then I just want to give a little bit of an overview of what I expect we'll be looking at in the next few months. So Pages is going to be the next one, which gets us to the end of the stateless service migration. Skarbek has already started putting together issues for that. So that will kick off pretty much as soon as we're done kind of hands-on with web. So, you know, possibly even next week. And then alongside that, we have 2 that are coming up that are both, I'm not sure which one will land first, but it'll either be Redis or Prefect. So Prefect should, from what we hear, should just migrate. So we can certainly attempt that, and we'll need to test it and see how that looks. But there's nothing actually blocking that work at the moment. And then the other one is Redis. So we have a shared OKR with across platforms. So we're sharing it with scalability, which is to work out a kind of longer term Redis scaling plan. So we were expecting that this quarter will be kind of the investigation and working out like which cluster makes sense and how would we actually go about doing this. Then there are some kind of new things coming in as of yesterday that we may need to push this forward. So we need to scale Redis. So it's quite possible that if we're thinking Kubernetes is the answer to how we scale Redis, we may want to sort of adjust the order and perhaps do Redis before we try Prefect. So those are certainly the next three, though, I would expect to be coming in.
Thanks, Amy. I had just a couple comments. One is about secret refactoring. I don't know, this could belong in reliability and not delivery. Maybe be better there, but I would like to create an epic for it at least so that we can start scoping it out.
Right, yeah, so that's a super good point. So yes, secret is almost certainly going to drop out from one of these other projects, but yes, it may end up being a reliability project. But yeah, by all means, if you want to create an epic, then go for it now. But I think secrets will almost become a required piece for at least one of these three.
Yeah, and then the second point is just our migration, post-migration story. This might need to come before secrets because I'm just really looking forward to getting Puma secrets out of GKMS. And the deployer machine that will be like the last, actually deployer and console are the last two VMs. Once we migrate pages, that will be running Puma and require things like the database password and the Redis password. Like as soon as we decommission those hosts, then one of our two major secrets, like Redis password, database password, those can go into Google Secrets Manager or whatever solution, and we won't need to use GKMS for them anymore. So that would be great. But do you think that will fall on delivery? Is like how we do migrations, or is that also?
I think it will. Yeah. So what we know at the moment is that at some point registry are going to need these. We've kind of kicked it down the road a little bit because at the moment they don't need them. So we don't know exactly what that looks like. But yeah, once we've gone through web, then there's no real reason not to sort these out. One thing actually related to post-deployment migrations is our other big challenge or our other big focus through Q3 is around deployments and rollbacks. Now, the single biggest problem with rollbacks is post-deployment migrations block pretty much most packages from being rolled back. So there's a sort of a separate angle there as well, where we're actually going to review. Myra's started thinking about it already. Like, what do we actually do with post-deployment migrations? How do they fit into deployments and therefore rollbacks? So yeah, I think post-deployment migrations will certainly be a delivery thing.
So some quick points. I already have an epic for the GSM migration. It's probably a bit unloved, as in it needs a bit of an update. I'm more than happy to not necessarily do the work, but like help. I know exactly all of the options we have available and what needs to be done and which VMs need to change or scope. I know it all. So I'm happy to help scaffold that out so it could be actioned by anyone. And in terms of the console migration, so we were going to try and do a console readiness review as part of the web migration, and I think we think it might not be ready. Turning on the console, the masters, so the console servers to run in Kubernetes is like a 2-line code change because we already had the Helm chart already supports it. Like we've got all of the bits there to basically just spin up console master pods running in Kubernetes extremely quickly. And we could even federate them to the VMs.
Yeah, what about just leaving the console out because otherwise the VMs have to get in, right? Or
yeah, just to be clear, when I said console, I was referring to OLE, not UL.
We should get rid of one of these.
Which is like, yeah, it's really confusing. The OLE boxes are used for developer Rails access, so they have all the secrets to connect to the database. This is what I want to focus on. The UL boxes, those I don't think have as many secrets. Like they don't need the Redis password, the database password. So although it'd be easy, I'd rank it kind of lower priority. I'd like to focus on getting rid of deployer and the OLE console.
Okay, makes sense. And the OLE boxes were just redone, right, with teleport?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so Devin just did a whole bunch of work on them, which is fine. Yeah. But you could talk to him about what he knows about secrets or not secrets are being used.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Great
stuff. Thanks, everyone. Is there anything else we need to cover today? No, super. All right. Well, good luck, Graham, with next steps. Let us know how we can help, and hope everyone has a great day. See you soon.